All right, we're going to begin with the roll call. I'm going to turn my...
Okay. Before we get ready for a roll call, Madam Moderator, we have a new member to the 1st District, just newly elected, Wilmer
Lambert.
Yep.
I'd like to welcome Wilmer Lambert from District 1.
So I'll have to squeeze you in here on the roll somewhere.
Okay.
Alphabetically, right? I'm putting it at the end, sorry. Okay. I say your names. You tell me if you're here or not. Adams? Here. Bailey? Here. Bauer? Bordelon? Here. Casper? Here. Chase? Here. Frickman? Here. Gustafson? Here. Hanscom? Here. Kotowski? Here. Marley? Marshall? Martin? Here. Massett? Here. McDermott? Here. Melendez? Here. Melo Miller? Here. Merritt? Here. Monahan? Here. Newsome? Here. Oliver? Pasqualini? Here. Perry? Powers? Here. Pacino? Here. Quinn? Here. Richards? Here. Rogers with the D?
Here.
Stanford? Irma Streeter? Jim Streeter? Judith Strode? Here. Wagner? Washington? Wells? Here. Whitehouse? Here. Whitney? Here. Ooh, you're not late. And Eben?
Here.
And one more, Lampert. 29 present.
29? Mm-hmm. Quorum?
Oh, yeah.
So I did receive correspondence from several members, Irma and Jim Streeter, Doug Marshall, Reginald Sanford, and Cutter Oliver, who are unable to make it tonight.
I think Beverly was on there.
Oh, and Beverly Washington. Yeah. So the next item is a moment of silence, and I think we have a few reasons to be silent. Please rise for the salute to the flag. Representative Monahan, would you please lead us in the salute? To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, the next item is the approval of minutes. Everyone received those minutes from our September 12th meeting. Do I have a motion? Pasqualini and Powers was second. Thank you. Representative Casper?
Is there correction to the minutes?
Okay. Please.
If they're just typos, I've got those.
Okay.
Okay.
Where's the typo?
Okay.
My name.
Okay. A misspelling?
Yep.
Got it. Any other corrections? No? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Minutes are approved. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is citizens' petitions. And at this point, this is the portion of the RTM agenda where the RTM welcomes comments from citizens. Each presentation should be limited to 10 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit written comments. Presentations should be limited to matters pertinent to Groton. The moderator or members through the moderator shall ask questions only in order to clarify the speaker's presentation. Responses may be given by the moderator or by the town manager. Citizens should make their presentations from the lectern and state their names and addresses for the record. In this case, we have 3 folks signed up. I think we can probably limit it to 5 minutes. The first person I have on my list is Dan Mello. Could you please come forward and state your name and address?
Dan Mallow, 263 Bridge Street. Good evening. I'd like to thank the RTM for all of its hard work. I recognize that you spend many nights here and do a lot of good work on the part of the community. My visit tonight is rather interesting because, frankly, I'm not a political person, but I certainly support what takes place in terms of the community, politics, because I taught U.S. history for about 30 years. I was also a member of the Charter Revision Committee. I thought that was my opportunity to give back to the community and do my community service. I met many fine people on the commission. The commission was composed of people with diverse views. I don't mind stating that pretty much I'm an independent. I've supported both parties, but I feel that in order for me to advance things that I'm concerned about, I don't want to be put in a certain mold. But on the commission, I need to be frank that I was one of the proponents, and a loud proponent, of the referendum. And the reason why I supported the referendum was the belief that, the people of Groton personally should have a say in how their money is being spent. Everywhere I went, everyone I encountered asked for a referendum, asked to have a say in determining the budget. Now, I recognize that this group represents the people of Groton, but the reality from my year and a half on the commission tells me that this group is kind of on the back end of the budget process, and that, frankly, a group needs to be in place that deals with the budget at an earlier stage so you can have more of a say and more input. Some of the things in the charter do deal with that, and I recognize that some of you may not support a Board of Finance. The reality is that the arguments that were advanced against the referendum is we're too big. Groton's just too big to have a referendum. Well, you've got about 40-something thousand people, but you got about maybe 19,000 voters. 19,000 voters, I think, it can be handled. It can be handled. The Board of Finance that was proposed in the charter would be an advisory group. They would be active in the beginning of the process and work with the town managers as well as the council throughout the process, and they would hold public hearings. Those dates would be posted, and they would also be able to deal with five-year planning. I don't know if this group does that. There's also concern in the charter about a bifurcated budget, meaning dividing the budget for the town and then the education. And the voters would have a say on whether they wanted the town budget to pass, the education budget to pass, or both to fail. There's concern expressed that when you do a referendum in a bifurcated budget, people are going to come out and vote down the education budget. I really don't believe that. I think you have enough evidence with schools that are being built in the community to recognize that people do support education, and people in the community would support education. But people should have a say. There are retired people in the community that live on fixed incomes that can't afford the tax increases. There are new people moving into the community with children that recognize the value of having a solid school system. Let the voters have a say. Let them choose. So I'm here tonight, after spending a year and a half with this group, and, to be honest with you, I don't know when this charter will be revised again. Another 10 years? I don't know. There may be one other town in Connecticut that has an RTM. Nothing against, I thank you for your hard work, but I really think that some changes need to be made in terms of the operation of the town, so you're not having some redundancy. We still have the council manager form of government. That's not something we tried to get rid of.
Please wrap it up a little. 5
So-
minutes is up.
Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to come out because I thought it was important, since I was on this commission, that I at least express my views in a public forum.
Thank you very much. Ian Thomas?
Ian Thomas, 159 Shinnecock Parkway. I disagree. I am a big fan of what the RTM does. I'm a big fan of representative government, and I believe that this body, is that in probably the best, most diverse form I've seen in many of the towns I've lived in. The November 6th referendum question in Groton is touted by proponents as a citizen's right to vote on the budget. This is a gross oversimplification of the terms. It willfully omits the full scope of changes that would occur should the revision pass. Groton currently has 58 elected positions across the town council, RTM, Board of Education. This charter revision would eliminate the one elected representative body, this one, that holds the actual voting and veto power to check and balance the town council. The Board of Finance would be advisory only and have no vote or veto power over the town council, and that's concerning to me as a unaffiliated agnostic voter who would like to see a good balance of power. Eliminating the RTM erases the diversity of voices from voters across all 7 districts. Right now, currently, there are between 4 and 7 RTM members per district, and the Board of Finance would reduce that to 1. That's incredible reduction. And again, removing all vote and veto power. So, that doesn't make much sense to me. I have no problem with a budget referendum per se, and philosophically speaking, there is, you set it up with a threshold of some kind and a minimum voter turnout. It's not a bad idea. Say 2% increase calls for a referendum, something like that. And I've heard some people that were on the CRC had actually voiced that as an aspect. And however, that did not make it into the final document. That is not in the final document. So we have to deal with the document that we've been given. And so for that, I must vote no, and I encourage everyone to vote no. Could there be adjustments made to the RTM? Sure, but to toss everything out overnight or over the span of 60 days, not wise, I don't think. And the other thing that's not mentioned much by the proponents for the charter revision is that it would increase the terms of the town council to 4 years as a block, not staggered, as a block. So it would be 4 years before you get a chance to hold any town councilor accountable for any action or inaction that you've had issue with. And the Board of Finance, I believe, it would also be a 4-year block term, not staggered. So, there's that. That's a reduction of voter influence. That's a reduction of your right to vote on town matters. So I'm, again, confused as to how this document came to be, what it started as, and then how it came to be what it is now. So, and another common refrain from the yes vote crowd is that, the voters deserve to have a say. But my contention, my counterpoint to that is that the voters do have a say. All the RTM members are posted on the website. You can look them up, email, call, and voice your concerns. That's representative government. That's how it works. It's not the RTM members' responsibility necessarily to reach out to every single constituent, but a constituent who has a concern has a responsibility to reach out to the representative and make that concern known. So there's that. Also, I feel like the budget referendum, what happens in the RTM is a line by line, you know, RTM, you guys break up into committees, you analyze the budget, go line by line, item by item, and you can fine tune, cut here, add there, you know, and there's a lot of conversation about it, a lot of late nights. It's a lot of effort, and I think it's effort well spent.
Can you wrap it up, please?
Sure. Annual budget referendum as proposed in the charter revision. You're asking the town residents to perform brain surgery with a battle axe. Not a good idea.
Thank you.
Vote no. Vote no.
Stella Perez.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and thank you, town RTM members. I'm here tonight
Can you please say your address and your name?
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the record?
Stella Perez, 7 Bayberry Lane in Groton.
Thank you.
I'm here tonight because I've lived in the town or the city since 1956, and I'm a real estate broker, so I'm very familiar with what's happening in the town. And my comments will be very short. I've looked at some stats, and our Social Security has gone up 2%, where our mill rate has gone up 15%. And senior citizens who are very smart people, contrary to what some people are saying, are very smart people, and they can't afford to continue with the taxes that are imposed upon them in this town. So obviously, I am for the referendum, and I hope it passes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who seeks to speak under citizen? Representative Kotowski?
Rosanne Kotowski, 24 Ann Avenue, Mystic, Connecticut. After several terms on the RTM, I am completely convinced that a budget referendum as a final step in the Town of Groton budget process is what is needed to provide complete voter representation as well as potentially controlling spending. Taxes in Groton have increased 18.9% in the last 4 years, which is not sustainable, and the town must be more prudent with the taxpayers' money. The debate seems to be coming down to one point. The Vote No people believe that an elected body, the RTM, provides more voter representation as the final say on the budget. The Vote Yes people believe that a budget referendum with each voter having a say provides more voter representation as the final say on the budget. All good people on both sides. I hope all of you have had an opportunity to read the new charter. Some of the charter highlights are an annual budget referendum as the final say on the budget versus the RTM, an elected body, having the final say. A new Board of Finance is created, which is elected by district to guide the budget process starting in October prior to budget completion. Currently, the budget is done in May when received by the RTM, and the RTM cannot add to the budget or go over the town manager's numbers. Also, the public is involved in the budget process starting in October. The budget is no longer department head driven. Currently, the department heads are developing their budgets with no input from the RTM or the public. Town council terms are 4-year terms. This was proposed by the previous town council. Also, state statutes that govern minority rule apply to the town council in the new charter, eliminating one-party rule. The Board of Education currently has 4-year terms with minority representation. However, they're staggered. The RTM also has minority representation. A few other comments. The voters in Groton are engaged and paying attention. The referendum votes over the past decade are proof of that. More than half have passed. There are 19,000 active voters in Groton with a 27% voter turnout, and it is not justified to be afraid to put the final say on the budget in the hands of the people. The budget item on the RTM agenda is rarely, if ever, used and is not comparable to the public input available in the new charter starting in October. 80% of the Groton Town budget is salaries and benefits. The RTM has no say on either. Even though the budget typically increases 2% annually, the taxes have increased 18.9% in the last 4 years. So stating how little the budget has gone up without stating how much taxes have gone up is only half the story. The Town Council guidance to the Charter Revision Commission included changes to the RTM. All councilors wanted something done with the RTM. Some wanted it eliminated and some wanted it reduced. The charter was reviewed line by line with the town attorneys. Last, I never have or will accept the comment that the RTM is more informed than the voters. It's our money. Who better to represent me or you as to how to spend it than me or you? Groton voters will have a direct say as to how their tax dollars are spent. The new charter is a win for Groton voters and taxpayers. Please vote yes on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Melo Miller.
Good evening. As many of you know, I am a recent resident of Groton and also of New England, moving here 5 years ago as a military spouse, and I am proud to call Groton home. I grew up in California, where there is not the system of checks and balances that there is here. Instead, school districts are by county. There is a lot less accountability. We vote in midterms, we vote for superintendents, but there's a lot less accountability when it comes to our taxes. In California, we have to trust that our politicians are making the right decision. So when I came to Groton 5 years ago, and I learned that the RTM, and there were 7 people, up to 7 people in my district that I could count on, that I could see walking their dog or getting coffee in the morning, and I could ask them what was going on. Or I could count on fellow parents of people that my kids go to school with to protect my children for cuts. We have people on the RTM that are invested in our community. We all are invested in our community, or else we wouldn't be here every single month for hours on end during budget season. I want to point a few things out here. First of all, eliminating the RTM, which this would be our last meeting. Now, I know some of us have been here for a very long time. This would be our last meeting. If this goes forward, then there will be no accountability. You will have town council going up to 4 years. Right now, we can change it every 2 years. If we don't like how someone's doing, we can change it. We can't. That's 4 years stuck with the same person. Second of all, right now, town staff, professionals, they keep track on all the financial activities. So Board of Finance, they would have no power. They would be advisory only, whereas right now, we already have people doing what they want the Board of Finance to do. This clearly eliminates checks and balances. This wouldn't help with taxes because you don't have citizens that are voting on wages or salaries or benefits. It's still going to come down to the voter, but right now the voter can trust one of us walking our dog in the morning to say, hey, this is what I think about this issue. Can you take it up? They have a direct link, and that link would be severed. For the record, if this is our last meeting, it's been truly an honor to serve with all of you. I have really enjoyed this last year on the RTM, and I hope that we have another long budget season ahead of us. But I am so proud to call Groton home, and I am so proud to live in an area where there are such checks and balances, where I can have my neighbors as my friends and know that they're going to make the right choices for my kids. And I know that I have friends, lots of them, that will help make those right decisions. And I want to continue doing that with strangers that have now become friends. This is why I support voting no. Thanks.
Thank you. So, any other RTM members who wish to speak? This is not communications. Representative Casper?
Thank you. Clarence Casper, 114 Colony Road, Groton. In 1954, Groton was a much smaller town. The USS Nautilus, sponsored by Mamie Eisenhower, was launched, and residents voted on a town budget. Problems were noted, and a town charter revision commission was created to find a better way, which resulted in our present form of town government. How are we doing under it? Our population has increased to approximately 40,000, and from this year's budget book, we rank 107 out of 169 towns in debt per capita, 113th in education expenditures, 146th in tax levy per capita, 136th in property tax revenue as a percent of total revenue, and 147th in equalized mill rate. I say, and Groton has one of the largest commercial industrial tax bases in the state as a percentage of its grand list. So I don't understand people that say they can't afford the taxes. I don't know what town they're going to move to. There's only a few others that are lower. In all other towns which have the RTM, namely Brantford, Darien, Fairfield, Greenwich, Waterford, and Westport, it is the legislative branch of government. The boards of aldermen, town councils, etc., are the administrative branch. So in studying other towns, why wasn't making the RTM the legislative branch and eliminating or restructuring the town council considered? According to Bob Frink's statement, which is in the charter section, I did advocate for the RTM and the elimination of the town council. However, after digging into this, it became evident that many of the members of Groton's RTM are very happy meeting once a month and would not be interested in taking on the legislative role of the town council. Apparently never considering that the RTM with more powers would attract a new set of people willing to put in the time. I also believe that that would result in less personal time required per member, as committees would divide and conquer the workload. Another good idea was the RTM could be made larger to make it more representative of voters. Other RTMs ranged from 1 member per 550 voters in Waterford to Darien's 1 member for every 100 voters. There are other good ideas in the RTMs, and apparently none were considered seriously by the commission. Since the commission only considered a budget referendum, let's look at the facts. At the last election, which decided our town government, only 30% of the town's 17,000 voters voted. I conclude then that only 3 out of every 10 of the people who signed the petition for their right to vote actually voted in the last election. How ironic. Even worse, in Connecticut budget referendums, there is an average of only an 18% turnout. Another good idea, specifying a minimum turnout, if not met, which causes the budget to be adopted regardless of the results of the referendum, was also not considered. Now, I used to live in Windsor and owned a house there. In Windsor is a town similar in size to Groton, and I would say the same demographics. It takes an average of 2 votes to get the budget, and once it took 6 votes. In Groton, with a vote every 2 weeks, it would take 12 weeks, not to mention the $20,000 referendum vote. 20,000 per referendum vote. Also, with a referendum, there is no discussion, no deliberation. How many voters will go through the budget book and understand what's going on? Using a bell curve analogy, I hope I don't lose people here. 5% believe no budget is ever small enough. There's a corresponding 5% who feel that more spending is the answer, but they will have no vote. Of the other 90%, 50% probably fall in the satisfied category and probably have the lowest voter turnout, along with the 20% who are highly satisfied. The 20% who are unsatisfied with the budget and the 5% who are always unsatisfied probably will have the highest turnout in referendums. No wonder, with only a yes-no vote, the dissatisfied minority can carry the day, at least on the first vote. For this and for other reasons brought up by other citizens in town, I am advocating that we do not return to 1954.
Please wrap it up.
It's your money, it's your vote, so don't waste it. Vote no.
Thank you. Representative Bordelon?
Portia Bordelon, 159 Shanticasa Parkway. As you can see, I have nothing prepared, but after hearing some of the comments made tonight, as you know, I do not like to stay quiet. And that actually has been one of the criticism of the RTM, is that people do not speak up. So here I am again speaking up. Wow, where did we begin? The Board of Finance, if you read the CRC, will have no control over salaries and wages in this town. So having the Board of Finance will not change any of that. The referendum will only increase cost, and there will be no minimum turnaround time required when they go back to referendum, so absentee ballots could be eliminating. Once again, disenfranchising certain sections of town, including citizens, seniors as well, that maybe cannot make it to the polls. Education is 68% roughly, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, I apologize, of our budget. If we go to referendum on that, money could be held up and school officials could be waiting to find out if they're going to be rehired or not. Some of the people that are vote yes say the schools are overspending, too much money here, wages are increasing in the schools, and they don't want that. Once again, the referendum will not change that. The referendum cannot change the MBR, the minimum budget requirement. That will not change unless something drastic happens in this town. So going to referendum on those items, worrying about salaries and school spending, is not going to be fixed by the referendum. I have to say that I'm quite offended. Many people have said, what does the RTM do? Do you think that I enjoy time away from my family on a Wednesday night, once a month, not including small committees, and I attend about 85% of the RTM meeting, town council meetings, and I also go to committee meetings and Board of Ed meetings on any given night. I could be seen out at meetings 2 to 3 nights a week. To say that I'm doing nothing, wow. And do you think the finance, the Board of Finance is going to put that kind of time in? And what if you don't like your elected Board of Finance? You have no other option. If you don't like me in District 2, you have other people you can speak to. That is the power of the RTM. We have a chance to speak to different people that you might connect with maybe a little bit better. There is minority representation on this RTM. This yes/no vote is not a political thing. It's not a Democrat or Republican or Independent. It's bipartisan. As I stood out at that October Fall Festival this weekend, we were united as one group fighting for this town. I'm extremely concerned as to what this could bring and the devastation. No minimum voter turnout, 4-year terms. Some of the biggest criticism of the yes are they don't want their taxes to go up. They don't want this, everything's going up. This person did that. Well, what if you get a whole town council that's in for 4 years with the financial board? You're stuck. You're stuck. What are you going to do? Go to referendum? What are we going to do? So I'm concerned. I feel how the yes vote is being sold or stated is your right to vote on your money. You're still able to vote on your money. By showing up to the polls and the RTM, you're still an active component in that. I don't see a lot of people here tonight that showed up to vote talking about their money tonight at the RTM meeting. Do people realize that CIPs have already started to come out for the Board of Ed? Does anybody know about those? Do you think the local average person knows about the current CIPs? I do. I attend the meetings. Growing up here and living here for almost 30-something years myself and being a Fitch High School graduate and then raising my children here, I stayed here for the diverse, dynamic, rigorous community that this was. And this is democracy right here. On any given day, we can come down here and I'll disagree with this person and they'll disagree with me, and we work things out in our own representative body here. What we're moving towards could devastate the whole town. And then, as one of the CRC members nicely stated, it could take 10 years to get this changed. Do I think change should be made? Yes, change can be good. Not all change is bad, if done appropriately. Our last town council of a 9-member body, 8 being Republicans, 1 Democrat, voted this CRC this whole thing down because it wasn't ready to go forward. I just encourage that we look maybe at a new document down the road, a new charter revision possibly, but
Please
the current one right now is not it's not sustainable, it's not accurate, and it's not giving proper representation. Coming from District 2, if every voter showed up in my district and another district that had double the size of mine, where's that representation? How is the other side going to be represented? Once again, I encourage you to vote no, and I respect every member out here, even though we may disagree on certain items. I encourage the town to really look at this, read the charter revision online, word by word, to really understand it. It's not being sold just as your right to your money. Please look at the full 26-page document. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Representative Newsome?
Scott Newsome, 56 Hilltop Road, Mystic. I really hate following Representative Bordelon. She is so much more articulate than I am. Thank you. Oh, I didn't have anything prepared, but. Oh, so here I am ready to embarrass myself again. Most of you know I've been on the RTM for over 20 years. And the reason that I've done that is because the time commitment for the RTM is just what I'd like to put in. It's what I have to contribute. It's what I can give back. I don't have any political aspirations. I just want to give a little bit back to my town. And being on the RTM, this body, and I assume most of you are the same way, most of us don't have time to run for the town council. It's a way that everybody can be involved if they want to. Anybody can run for the RTM, right? I'm just saying, you know. 30 seconds, a new record for embarrassing myself. No, I've done it sooner. So here's the thing. What we're signing up for, if you vote yes, if you disband this body, you're going to put all the spending power into the hands of 5 people, the majority of a 9-person town council. So I'm an engineer. I don't get to live in the theoretical world. In theory, this Board of Finance will have some input. In theory, this Board of Finance can maybe provide some recommendations, and this Board of Finance will be elected from all the different districts in town. But there's no teeth to that. There's nothing that says the town council, the 5 people out of 4, has to take the recommendations. There's nothing. So you know what? It might as well be worth nothing, because there's no teeth. I mean, let's face it, in this town, we have a very diverse group of people. The city, the town, all the different fire districts, Groton, Long Point. But the nice thing is that in this body, all those people are represented. And more than once, when the town council has had a vote that may have slighted one of those groups of people, members of the RTM that represent them have brought that up and said, hey, you know what? This is not fair to the people that we represent. And pretty much every time, the other members of the RTM have thought about it and said, yeah, you're right. That's not the right thing to do. You're not going to have that with vote yes. All you're going to have is a vote on a bottom line number. And you don't know what you're going to get for that number, and it doesn't matter because you don't have a say. Here's the bottom line number, yes or no. You're not going to be going through, people aren't going to be going through 2-inch budget books and looking at line item by line item. It makes me go crazy doing it myself. I can't, and I have to because I signed up for that. I can't imagine people doing that because they want to. There may be a few of you out there, but there's probably not many. But that's the thing. In this bizarre town, everybody gets represented by this body, and that goes away if you're down to just 5 people. And more than once, you know what this body has done? More than once, when town council has, when 5 people have gotten together and they've made some spending decisions that were egregious, this body has come to the rescue and taken care of that with our voting power by voting down line items that have been in the budget that the town council had voted for. This is the safety valve that keeps 5 people from making all the fiscal decisions for this town. And then we want to give that to 5 people for 4 years? It's not a very good idea. The thing is, we have nice things in this town. Look at this beautiful senior center that we're in. You know how many towns have someplace like this? We are the envy of all the towns in Connecticut and people I've talked to who've been here and seen this. We have nice things. We have a great Parks and Rec program. I know that because we have people from all the surrounding towns come and participate. We have a beautiful senior center for our seniors. We have nice things in this town. So what's going to happen if we just say, costs too much. Start cutting, start cutting, start cutting. What's going to happen here? What's going to happen in Parks and Rec? What's going to happen to the things that make this town attractive? And as you remember, the director of economic development said, from the survey that they took, businesses are looking for a place with quality of life. And I've talked to him about taxes over and over because I said, businesses really like low taxes.
Please wrap it up.
Yes, ma'am. And he said, no, that's not true. Businesses are looking for a place with quality of life. So all I'm saying to people is a vote for yes is not necessarily a vote for a quality of life in this town. And a lot of the things that we've worked hard for, you could find going away, and you have no control over that. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Chase? I would have limited this to 3 minutes if everyone signed up. No? It's good. Democracy in action.
I'll be quick, I promise.
No, thank you.
Cathy Chase, 146 Indian Field Road. We all get to vote on November 6th. What a privilege that we all have. I sat on the Charter Revision Commission. The town council at the time requested volunteers to apply to this commission. I applied, went through an interview process, and was accepted. It was my first introduction to active town politics. The same town council developed a list of existing charter items for the commission to research. One of them was the RTM. There were many things on that list, but one of them was the RTM. The specific instruction was to decrease the number of people on the RTM or eliminate it. With exhaustive research, it was decided to replace the RTM with a referendum. A 7-member Board of Finance would be implemented, all voted in by district. That is, 1 member will be elected from each of the 7 districts in Groton. Their job, among many others, would be to scrutinize the budget the town council will give them. Will the Board of Finance have as much power as the RTM does now? No. That power goes to you, the voters, where it should be. People have talked about the possibility of low voter turnout for budget referendums. I think they will turn out. We have 41 people on the RTM that votes on the budget. We will get much more than that from each district voting. I have also heard that the voters will not scrutinize the budget the way the RTM does. How do they know this? Voters have never had the opportunity to vote on the budget, so why would they have learned to read it? Now they will with the charter revisions. I know I've said for years, I've lived here since 1961, and I have said for years I wish I could get to vote on the budget. I am here. The money you pay to the town through your taxes will now be in your hands. You will have many opportunities, more than you do now, to get involved with the budget process while the budget is being developed, not after it has been completed like now. And there is a graph online that you can look at to see what the process would be. Does it cost money to have a referendum? Yes, it does, but there is a strong possibility that money will be saved through the savings in the budget process because of your vote. Is this a perfect revision? No, but even the Constitution needed amendments. You have to start somewhere. My hope is that the Board of Finance will be more than just advisory in the future. I encourage everyone to go to the town website to look at the charter changes. Is change scary? Yes, but without change you can't grow. Let's start the change and vote yes to the revised charter on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Richards?
Kate Richards, 78 Algonquin Drive. I wanted to speak to you to urge voters to vote no on the charter revision. And I think we have a lot of good arguments that are been presented here, and I'm not going to reiterate them. What I did want to add, though, was an emphasis that the RTM here does vote on the budget. It's very much involved in the finances of the town, but that is only one function of the RTM. We also have the ability to initiate ordinances and to veto ordinances. So we can make a lot of other changes beyond that, and we are a check on the council for the ordinances that they put in place. So while finances are a major issue, there's a lot more that can be involved, and a good reason to have checks and balances besides a majority of a town council. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Representative Rogers?
For the record, Annie Rogers at 208 High Street, Mystic. I'll keep this short. My concern about the budget referendum is very pinpointed, and it has to go back to the bell curve. My concern is that it helps to shift the balance of power to the edge of the bell curve, and that it takes power away from actually the constituents, which is the whole purpose. So I find it counterproductive. Why do I say this? Because I've been on the RTM all of 10 months, very new to this. I've been in Groton for 8 years, and I'm a working mother. I work 40 hours a week. Yesterday, got home off a train from New York at 10:30 at night. I'm busy. I'm busy. Before I joined the RTM, I would not have read the budget book. Would not do it. Couldn't do it. Wouldn't have the time. The most information I could get would be from checking the day while at my daughter's soccer practice. I was not the most informed voter, and that's why we're here. We're here to represent those people in our districts who lead busy lives. For me, my concern is young families, young, new members of our community, and people of color, people who feel disenfranchised from democracy. Our job is to represent them, to listen to them, to do what's best for them. And my concern is that we're seeing on a national level ever more in stark contrast the importance of checks and balances. And I want to protect the checks and balances that we have here in Groton. I feel that they work well, and I want to encourage dialogue about what's working in Groton and what's not, but I feel that this referendum is counterproductive, and I'll be voting no.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Rogers. Have we reached a lull, or is there another hand? No? Okay. So let's see, what is the next item on this agenda? We have receipt of communications, and I wanted to just mention a few communications that have happened. The first is that we were invited on 2 tours by the town staff. The first occurred yesterday to the sewage treatment plant, and about 10 of us on the RTM, and one town councilor did assemble at the Groton sewage treatment plant and had a really lovely tour by Chris Lund. And I just wanted to mention, it was terrific to see this facility, to learn about some of the capital improvements that are being proposed. But what I wanted to relay was the fact that I didn't know had happened last week under the high rain, was that there had been a discharge of untreated sewage, except for chlorine, into the Thames River from that plant because of the high precipitation event that had happened. And this is the second time it's happened in Chris's memory since Hurricane Sandy, when it also happened. And I know it happened then because my students would pick up the little plastic aerators all over the beaches when we do our beach cleanups at Pine Island and other places. But why I'm mentioning this has to do with those CIPs, with those capital improvements, and it's really want to ask the town, Mr. Sagami here as a representative for Mr. Burt, who's not here, to really think about vetting all capital improvements, and especially large infrastructure improvements for climate change, for the fact that we are going to receive higher precipitation events, perhaps more frequent, with sea level rise, and it doesn't make sense to invest millions of dollars of our tax money into projects that will be basically outdated in a short period of time. So whenever we are investing our money in infrastructure, I just hope that there can be a vetting process to look at the new normal that we're going to be in terms of sea level rise and higher precipitation events. So that's my first communication. And then my second communication is from a constituent, Chaz Sazulka, and I'll just read this. Actually, I have not read it before, sorry. As a former 5-term Groton Town Councilor and 2-term RTM member, where I served as majority floor leader and former Board of Education member, I'm writing to tell you that I'm opposed to the proposed changes to our charter. I know that most RTM members take their responsibility seriously when examining the budget. I and my family know that my representatives know more about the budget than we do as individual voters. Please speak up for me and my family and do not change the charter. We need to be represented fairly and knowledgeably. Having the good fortune to become a National Educator Award recipient and also having received a Connecticut fellowship, I was able to travel throughout Connecticut, the United States, and specifically Washington, D.C., where I attended a number of symposia and meetings on financial and budgetary matters affecting municipalities and governments. After sharing our checks and balance system, people were impressed and some even envious of our local governmental structure. So it goes without saying, I'm opposed to a budget referendum as proposed, do not want a Board of Finance that is only advisory in nature, and extending the town councilor term to 4 years does not ensure better leadership. I say a vote of no helps Groton grow, a vote of yes creates a mess. Thank you, Chaz Sazulka. That's cute. Sorry. Did any other representatives receive communications that they'd like to relay? Representative Whitehouse? You can come to the lectern if you like, or you could take it there. Okie doke.
Yeah, I actually don't know this individual sent it to me. I don't think he's involved in political process directly, but his name is Marco Frucht. He sent me an email that says, just want you to know that I'm a no for the charter revision. I think there's a better time and way to do all this, do all that, and this wasn't it. Cheers, Marco Frucht, teacher, guitarist, and songwriter.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Massett?
Madam Moderator, this is a communication from Jean-Claude Amboise, 169 Shenecasset Parkway in Groton. As a Groton resident in District 2, I wanted to contact my RTM representatives regarding the upcoming ballot question in Groton on November 6th. I am happy with the diverse community representation of the RTM and would be very disappointed if it was eliminated. I wanted you to please communicate this message to the RTM during your October meeting. Thank you. In an article published September 16th, a Groton Right to Vote PAC member fails to provide accurate information in his advocacy for the proposed Groton Charter revision. Primarily, they neglect to mention that on November 28th, 2017, the Town Council rejected the Charter Revision Commission final report by a vote of 5-4. On October 3rd, at the Charter Revision Town Council public hearing, those who spoke against it outnumbered proponents 20-9. 6 were members of the CRC supporting their proposed changes. It is false for the GRTV to claim virtually no changes to the core of our town government is proposed. The elimination of the representative town meeting would be a radical restructuring of the most powerful elected body in the town. It is the one elected body most intimately entwined with the voters. By state law, the RTM is required to provide seats for minority party representation. The volunteers who serve on the RTM are our friends and family. They live in our neighborhoods. They know what matters to us because the same things matter to them. Good town services and progressive educational programs. It is false to claim charter revision would create a transparent annual budget development process. Groton already has an open, extensive, line-by-line budget development and review process that includes formal settings for citizen input. The monthly RTM agenda has standing items allowing for discussion of the town budget at any meeting, should any RTM member or citizen choose to do so. It is false to claim the proposed charter would require that residents vote annually on a budget. Not all residents are voters, and no voter is required to vote. However, every taxpayer would be required to cover the $25,000 plus cost of operating all the polling places for each of the potentially unlimited number of budget referenda every year. To be fair, GRTV is accurate on one point. The proposed charter revision entails more changes than outlined here. It indeed does include a lot more changes than they outlined. Ironically, he states he wants to make sure the voters are fully informed, but leaves out critical considerations. Here are 3 key points. 1, taxpayers are not empowered when terms of office are increased from 2 to 4 years. A 2-year term keeps office holders directly and regularly accountable to voters. Extending terms only insulates office holders and diminishes the power of voters. 2, taxpayers are not empowered when the statute requiring minority party representation shifts to the town and city officials due to the dissolution of the RTM. Minority party representation requirements will remove the voters' authority to sweep out members of a political party, as they did in the 2017 Groton Town election cycle. It should be the ultimate power of the voters to demonstrate their deep displeasure in such a manner. If the charter revision succeeds, this power of the voting electorate would be lost. The RTM is the proper legislative body for a minority party representation requirement. 3, taxpayers are not empowered when they can only vote for one member of the 7-member Board of Finance. Voters are especially diminished when one considers this Board of Finance would not be granted any vote or veto power over the town council. There would be no regular and readily accessible check and balance authority over the council, such as the RTM possesses now. Groton right to vote description of the proposed charter is at best neglectful, or at worst, intentionally deceptive. The proposed charter revision does not serve the interests of Groton residents, voters, and taxpayers. If passed, this charter revision will drastically transform Groton. Quite simply, there are too many changes, and all result in massive reductions of our diverse, dynamic, and community-rooted representation and voters' rights. A vote yes makes Groton a mess. A vote no makes all Groton grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other communications? There was one other thing that was actually included in our packet, and I just wanted to call it out. It's an ordinance on the Code of Ethics, and this I'm referring to the Rules and Procedure Committee, so they can look it over, and if they so wish, propose a veto of it, and we can take that up at our next meeting. So that's that. We've also received, I think, received an ordinance which has not yet been passed the town council, which is what?
It's an introduction.
It's an introduction to the ordinance, and so when we get that, I will forward that to the appropriate committee. So the next item on our agenda is the report of the town manager. Mr. Zagami?
Thank you. First of all, I'll start with the financial report. The financial director, Cindy Landry, updated the council last night that the preliminary results of the operations for FYE 2018, as of this September, is at $19,107,965, and that's for the FYE 2019 general fund adopted budget. The general contingency budget for FYE 2019 was appropriated at $450,000. There is a budget amendment pending because of a recent close of a collective bargaining agreement with the steelworkers. And finally, the capital reserve fund balance is estimated at as of September 30th at $1.2 million. Under the manager's report, I'm going to read kind of the meat of this because it's kind of detailed. But the Groton 2020 Plan, Referendum 2, the referendum language approved by the voters of Groton called for a conversion of the existing middle schools into renovated like new elementary schools. As a result of the state legislative changes in 2017, the process for reviewing applications for renovations status was modified. The effect once the state studies showed that the cost of the building new was lower than renovating like new, the state issued a determination that elementary schools should be built as new replacement building rather than as renovations. This requires the town to seek an updated vote. There'll be a public hearing concerning the ordinance on December 23rd at 6 o'clock p.m. And
isn't it November 23rd?
it said December 23rd.
No. October 23rd? October 23rd.
Oh, yeah, that must be a mistake, and it says December.
No, December 11th will be the referendum.
October 23rd, it sounds like it is.
It definitely is October 23rd.
It's been confirmed, October 23rd.
I'll make sure we put this out for those.
It's going to be in the newspaper, and
Yeah,
they'll get a copy.
but we'll get this out because that's what I have written on here, so I'll make sure we correct that. Assuming the council approves it, then it will be sent over to the RTM for consideration. Finally, the other items, land sales. The town council recommended approval last night for the sale of a 0.09 acres section of the Noank School Garden property to Michael and Valerie Speller for $12,500. Previously, the Noank School Garden Task Force commented that they had no concerns with this issue. Once the council approves the sale, it'll require the approval of the RTM. Groton Heights bids have been received. The committee will be reviewing them soon. And Mystic Education Center, the committee has interviewed 2 finalists. The town is working with the state on the process since the state has the final decision making authority. And the library director, which is Betty Ann Ryder, is retiring in November, and a new library director of library operations is going to be Jen Mealy. She currently works right under Betty Ann Ryder, so she's been selected, and at the end of the month, she'll be taking over the position. The tours are all listed: the transfer station, Public Works, Garage, Human Services, Parks and Rec, OPTS, and Public Works, and that'll be sent out also. There was a question about town hall improvements. Public Works and Parks have recently painted the entry stairs and hallway at Town Hall, placed mulch, and painted the drop-off mailbox. We're seeking prices to paint around the outside of the entrance, which does contain lead paint. To do any painting beyond this is going to require additional funds to be allocated to that department. And lastly, there will be a joint city / town cow on October 23rd at 6:30 p.m. at the Town Hall Annex. So I apologize for us having a misinformation on the Groton 2020 plan, but we'll make sure we correct those dates and get them out to everyone.
I had a question, Mr. Zagami. The couple that bought that 12-acre parcel, is it? Or no? A small parcel at the Noank School, is that abutting their property, or what are they planning to do with it?
When we were at the town council meeting, it seemed to me they were kind of just going to let it remain as it is, and it does abut their property.
Oh, thank you.
Right, I can
Okay,
elaborate on that.
sure.
Yeah, the property it's less than an acre, it's .09.
Yeah, it was
Right.
$12,000. then.
Correct,
That was the
$12,000 is the sale price. But it's a slope, if you look at it, it's a sloping grade, and there's vegetation that buffers their property and the school property. So it's always been there, that just would become theirs, so it wouldn't be destroyed, I suppose.
Thank you, just curious.
But yeah, wetlands, you know.
All right, is that the monthly report? Are we on to economic development, or? Is there an economic development report, or was that it?
That's it.
Okay, so Dr. Grenier, would you like to give us your report of the schools?
So Whitehead wants to get on this, but he's a liaison.
Yeah, he's a liaison.
Right, that's true.
I got that this time.
Right. No, he wants, okay.
Did you want to get up now?
No,
Okay.
right, he's a liaison.
Oh, yeah, come on up if you want. Okay. Well, I prepared, I hope everyone has a copy. I prepared some comments tonight, in which I wanted to pick up where I left off. Last meeting we were talking about some concerns we had about water testing at 2 of our schools, Claude School and Fitch High School. We have continued to get really outstanding support from the Connecticut Department of Health and from the Ledgelight Health District. So we're working with them. We actually are down to 2 sources of water that they have requested that we retest. Of course, one of them is a water fountain at Claude School, and that water fountain has been shut down, but the fountains in the classrooms adjacent to that have all been retested, and they all fell within the acceptable range. And there is one fountain at the high school and a line that is going down to the field house and to the concession stand. So we've stopped, shut off the water essentially in the concession stand, and we're providing bottled water there, and we've continued to provide water, safe water from the high school for the athletes. Basically, actually this week, Mr. Kilpatrick met with the State Department of Health representative, water official, and she recommended a couple of more rounds of testing at those sites that I mentioned, but also to replace the water fountain fixture at Claude Chester and the faucets, pipes, fittings, and valves at the affected area in the high school. So once we do those replacements, we should have, well, we'll retest again, and then we will continue to follow the directions of the State Health Department. The next thing I wanted to mention is the board got some great news last week. We applied for a Department of Defense Educational Activity, or DODEA, grant for $750,000 over a 5-year period. And that would be, the big item initially was to provide funding at the high school for an international baccalaureate engineering and nursing program that we were hoping to institute. But we needed some additional funds to train the teachers. So we received the word that we got that. So that's the third major DODEA grant over the last 4 years. So it's a $3.25 million that we've picked up over the last 4 years. And the other aspect of it is we are going to provide outdoor STEM activities for elementary kids, like astronomy, in summer camps and so forth, and some training for teachers at the high school and at the elementary school. And then lastly, if you have my report here, we also received a grant that I've spoken about before. It's called the Magnet School Assistance Program, or MSAP. And that is the fund that has provided $4 million U.S. Department of Education funds to operate Westside as a STEM middle school, Cutler as an arts and humanities middle school, and both middle schools have now implemented the International Baccalaureate program and the middle years academic middle years International Baccalaureate program. The issue with the Federal Education Department is we just finished year one, and so they sent an inspection team out, and both of our middle schools did really well. We've done some really exciting things. We brought in Project Lead the Way engineering to the middle school, grades 6, 7, and 8. But at Cutler, we have brought in artists in residence, which have done some really interesting things. We now have a theater class, dance class, art, screenwriting, and media broadcasting. We now have a television studio. And that studio was actually just set up recently, but it also includes a digital computer lab, a digital music lab, and a recording studio. And our local partner is Sonolus. So we brought in some really terrific engineers from Sonolus. So all of that in short order was kind of put together because we had our inspection at the end of September because we're on a federal education year. And if I might, I just had, I can't resist my background as an anthropology student. I was sitting here in this body this evening, and I've said this before that I'm a kid that grew up in Midtown Manhattan, and I've always been charmed by the New England town meeting. I heard about it, but I never, till I moved here, experienced it. And what I saw tonight was a perfect example of why this community benefits so greatly from this vital institution called the representative town meeting. Because there's no place in this community better than here tonight to discuss a really important topic, I've heard bits and pieces of it, and I've seen signs, bits and pieces around town. But this is a deliberative body where people have civil dialogue, respectfully, talking about important issues. And I actually, I certainly see the logic of both sides. But I must say, as I step back from it all, it's amazing to me just what a real New England town meeting looks like. And I am just so appreciative. I told somebody I was going to make some comments tonight, and they said to me, well, you know, sometimes the RTM gives you a tough time. I actually appreciate it. I think hearing the diverse opinions is hugely important in this community. And I think to say that the one single issue that this community faces annually is a budget vote misses the complexity of our civil dialogue. And I think this institution tonight, if you would just look at the meeting tonight, that's why I believe this is so important and people should vote no. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate you on that DOD grant. That's really fantastic.
We're very happy with it.
That is terrific news for our community, so thank you
Well,
for all that effort.
The board has waited a long time because we have 11th and 12th grade diploma program for kids who clearly are college bound. But we've always been frustrated that we didn't have anything for the budding draftsmen and the culinary guys and the nursing students and business folks. And now this is going to be an opportunity for those kids to really get a step ahead and have a certificate that will allow them entry into the workforce, into technical schools. So we're really excited about it.
That's terrific. Representative Merritt?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Dr. Grenier, now that I've heard what you had to say and the grant you've got, and I think this is all fine and moving forward with the trades, I feel that I had a discussion with the people at the Fall Festival, and I spoke to the people of the robotics class, and I certainly hope, this is not an area tonight for debate on the discussion, but I certainly hope that some due consideration will be given to a dedicated space for these people to carry on their work. I think it has a place between the arts and engineering.
Completely agree with you, and we're working on that, and giving them an appropriate engineering space is hugely important. We're very proud of what they do, and we want to support them in any way possible.
Thank you.
Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Dr. Grenier, for the great comments that you gave to the RTM tonight. It was much appreciated. And I will say that my son attending the new STEM school, or transform into the STEM school at Westside, there has been some wonderful trips, and he came home talking about how he was preparing his sailboat and setting sail and using nautical terminology that I have no idea about. So that was very exciting. So I think we're off to a great start. My concern lies tonight with the water, and this is something that I have spoken and emailed. I also have gone to the Board of Ed meetings and spoke at the public comments regarding this, so this is not something new. Once again, just for the record, I'd just like to continue. I do still have a lot of concerns. I'm happy to hear that continued testing is continuing. I do have concerns as to how the water that was tested now is coming back okay if no modifications had been done. And the field house is still a great concern of mine for the athletes. Those two structures and buildings are quite old. I did not see any of those improvements on the CIPs that were proposed. The concession stand is a major asset to the sports program for raising money, and the athletes deserve fresh drinking water down at the field house, and it is a bit encumbersome to drag water from the main building on any given day. If you're up there, you can see them doing this, and I just feel it's our right to make sure the water is already down there for them. So under the water concern, and at the middle school level, I know that not every spigot has been tested. Some fountains have been, but I'm hoping that we are going to continue because once again, my thought is no level of lead should be acceptable. And I understand you guys are adhering to the federal and state regulations, but once again, so wasn't Flint, and they are. Major things have happened, and once lead is in your body, lead does not leave. And that's what I just want to state again. So that's the one thing. The grant, I'm excited about the grant, and I hope that some of this money will be used towards hopefully pursuing, if anything's left over, for a junior ROTC program up at Fitch High School. We're a military community. We're receiving DoD funds. As much as I'm excited about the IB program, I think our students that graduate, about 25 from looking back at old records of kids going off to some military installation, would be greatly served, and that would be another continuing ed program to have up at Fitch High School. Under the magnet school aspect, there are still some concerns with that as well. I know that the grant is good for 5 years, and one of the bigger problems in this town from an academic level standpoint is we invest a lot of money, we get a lot of wonderful grants, but when the grants run out, things start to break, and we seem a little slow with the repair. One of the great examples of that, and another issue that I hope is being addressed, and I have addressed, is our Promethean board status. After attending an open house up at the high school, going to 8 classes, 6 of those 8 classes, the teachers' boards were not working, and they had to use the whiteboard, but the Promethean board was blocking the whiteboard. Therefore, they could not efficiently give instruction. And once again, this is not something new coming out. I had already presented that, but I think it should. My job to represent my district is to make sure the information is put out there, and that there's still non-working boards up at the high school. A lot of the program and curriculum is driven by these Promethean boards, and so it is crucial that these boards are working. And my son has overheard, comments as, "Oh, these boards, they don't have the bulbs, they don't have this." I just hope that that's going to get fixed, because teachers can't teach without the proper tools that the curriculum was being used for. So I'm in support of the IB program and all these other fundings, but we have to keep fixing the things that we've already purchased with all these grants, because when they start to break, the grants are no good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, I see a few. Representative Whitehouse?
First off, I appreciate your comments before about the town hall meeting, because I think one of the great things about this is that everyone in town is able to hear your answers to us giving you a hard time. And I'm glad that you take it in the democratic spirit. But you mentioned some time ago that there were some students from out of town who are interested in paying tuition to come to Groton schools. I wonder if there's been any progress on setting tuition rates and.
Well, the only real progress is the board has done a financial analysis, and we now have a tuition rate that we've published. Mm-hmm. The only thing I can but that was not really done until August, so I think we missed the spring opportunity, mm-hmm. Which will come up again. But I can tell you this, that because of the magnet schools, it's not the students from other towns, but it is clearly the Groton residents are coming back. Both of our middle schools, the population has significantly increased, and the population of magnet schools children going to other magnet schools has decreased.
Right. And I was specifically wondering because I had occasion to talk to the superintendent in Lyme and Old Lyme.
Yes.
Where they have an actual marketing campaign.
They do.
Whole works, but I think they also have a declining.
They have a
population.
significantly declining population.
So they kind of need to do that.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
Okay, so we don't have the urgency that.
No, we're pretty. I just looked at the report today. I think of the 5,000 students, we're down by 57.
Okay, but
for pretty flat.
For the 2019-20.
For this year, for next year.
So you could say we have tuition in place.
Oh, right.
So for 2019-20, we'll be able to accept students.
That's right. That's right. I hope so.
And hopefully their money too.
Yes, exactly.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Superintendent Grenier? No? All right, seeing none, I want to thank you, and
Welcome.
I hope you heal well.
Thank you.
Quickly. We have some liaison reports now. Representative Kotowski, would you like to give the Town Council liaison report, please?
Okay, since our last meeting on October 7th, the town council approved a resolution approving the transfer of conservation and public recreation restrictions from the Merritt property to the Boulder Heights and King Kalnaski properties. They approved a resolution authorizing extension of the lease with Groton Ambulance. They approved a resolution approving the Code of Ethics ordinance with changes. Okay. Now, I got this off the website, and I'm just getting used to the new system. But last night, they introduced an ordinance, amending ordinance number 284, approved at referendum November 8th, 2016, appropriating $184,500,000 for the design and construction of the Groton 2020 plan and authorizing the issue of bonds to finance said appropriation. Be it ordained by the town council of the town of Groton that section 1 of ordinance number 284 shall be amended to allow for 1 new middle school and 2 new elementary schools. There will be a public hearing on October 23rd at 6 p.m. Okay, they did something else too. Okay. Also last night, they approved an ordinance, wait a minute. No, they resolved that subject to approval by the town council and the representative town committee, the ordinance be submitted for approval or rejection at a referendum to be held December 11, 2018. Voters approving the ordinance will vote yes, and those opposing the ordinance will vote no. Further resolved that the question will be placed on the voting machines shall be worded as follows. So this is what I should have said, actually. Shall the ordinance amending ordinance number 284 approved at referendum November 8, 2016, appropriating $184,500,000 for the design and construction of the Groton 2020 plan and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance said appropriation be approved. The public hearing is, again, October 23rd, 2018 at 6 o'clock, and the special referendum will be December 11th, 2018.
Thank you very much. Representative Bordelon, do you have a liaison report for the Board of Ed?
Mine is not typed. A lot of the stuff was already covered about the water testing. Also, the other additional thing was CIPs have come out. Fitch High School, $370,000. SP Butler, this is asbestos removal stuff. I think they might have even posted it already. Fitch High School, the tennis courts is back up again, $300,000. Gym floor, $40,000. Football field resurfacing, recrowning, $120,000. Planning at the Mary Morrison, it just says planning. Oh, the parking lot, that's back up. That's been up several times. This year, they even put the dates on there to articulate how often these CIPs are coming up. And this particular CIP for Mary Morrison parking lot has been going up since 2015. District storage, facility to replace the PV frame building, $450. Northeast, refinishing the exterior beams and Claude Chester Elementary School fuel tank removal. District-wide phone system, $500,000. Water service needs $150,000. So I just encourage you to start looking. Different groups are starting to, CIPs are starting to post, so that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Representative Wells, do you have anything from the Golf Advisory Task Force or whatever it is?
One meeting, two, we didn't skip a month from meeting. Let's see. They've had some incentives to drive play at the course, and it resulted in a 27% increase in rounds played this September over last year, with a 1.7% decline in revenue. But these changes are comparable to the averages of the previous 4 years, so they have improved traffic. An example would be the Plus Pass 2018 at fox61ctgolfer.com if you wanted to look it up and see what they're luring people to Shinnecossett with. Since last month, our Facebook likes have increased from 808 to 832. They like it when we like them, so please do so. The city-approved comfort station is delayed while the city approval of the comfort station is delayed while they come to terms with approving what is amount to a modern outhouse. They don't have, they have to look up and get some input on building codes, and I haven't built an outhouse in the city in maybe 100 years. The manager's report mentioned the coyotes. I hadn't planned to bring it up. They don't have an answer. They did talk to a coyote wrangler who can successfully trap them alive. And then they said, well, what do you do then? He said, well, I shoot them in the head. You just can't transport them to someone else's backyard. So I don't think they don't, as far as I know, they're not going forward with that, but they're hoping to find some solution. And despite having two course rangers that monitor play on the course, they have been some incidents of cart damage associated with social tournaments, usually involving drinking, which is what people do when they play golf, at least socially. These people are more the John Daly golfer rather than the Tiger Woods golfer, but they're the people that keep the course busy. It's been a damage to a couple of carts. They're tracking down who did it. I don't think they're using the Coyote Wrangler solution, but they will, hoping to get. And let's see, where are we? The transfer of City of Groton sewer costs from property taxes to the Groton Utilities water bill has increased the cost for the clubhouse by $800 per month. This reduces the effective revenue from the Par 4 restaurant by about 25%. Their immediate response is they're searching for leaks to try to reduce the water bill, which will reduce the sewer charges. Of course, this is water for the clubhouse, not the golf course, which doesn't have a sewer hookup. Let's see, where were we? In a longer term, we should consider more efficient water fixtures. Planning and engineering for replacement and alternatives and alterations of the toilet are scheduled for next year's budget, with construction to begin in 2020 and the 2021 budget. Beyond that, we could look into improvements to the clubhouse to increase its market value, so that by the time the restaurant lease is up, we'll be able to get a higher rent for the restaurant property. Like the Ocean House of today, the Griswold Inn was a top destination, and its surviving clubhouse could reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Representative Whitehouse, would you like to have anything to say on the Economic Development Commission liaison report?
All right, so the Economic Development Commission, generally every month there's a speaker from the community, and this month there's a community concierge. If you're not familiar with the program, it is part of the TRIP program, which is the Thames River Innovation Places. And the idea of the community concierge is to be a resource for people who are new to town, and since we are hiring approximately a gazillion people over the next few years, they wanted to make sure that they had a way to find resources, whether it be housing, things to do, education, restaurants, etc. So there's a site called communityect.com. The Eastern Connecticut Chamber of Commerce is administering the program, and they encourage locals to sign up because they have community, I believe they're called ambassadors, something like that. Basically, they're having events where locals and new residents are encouraged to come together, because what's very important is that when people come to town, they stay here. Which we don't, EB has a problem with people staying for a few years, building up their resume, and then finding a job somewhere else more exciting. So we want to make sure this town is exciting for them and they feel connected. And the program is actually regional. It's not just Groton, so it's for the whole area. The EDC is also working on an outreach program, actually going out to businesses and getting their feedback directly. And the businesses respond very well to that because many of them, they say, the only time the government talks to me is when they want my taxes or want to tell me I'm in violation of something. So when somebody comes from town hall and saying, we're here, what do you need? They actually feel that's very exciting. They're going to be 7 new trade name certificates were filed in the past month. And they're going to start sending out welcome cards and adding them to an email list of all the new businesses that start. So they feel like they're actually part of the town, not merely a source of tax revenue, which they are, and we like that, but we want to make sure they feel welcome. So economic development, a lot of people kind of look at it and say, what's taking so long? And I've seen some articles about a program started 10 years ago, we haven't seen results. The challenge with economic development is you can't legislate, okay, developers, you must come here, you must build something great. We have to entice them and create an environment, and it's even slower than government usually is because it involves, working with people to create an environment instead of simply mandating. But we are seeing results of many years of effort, many years, long before I came to town actually, of people working to develop programs, and some of those results are listen to some of these construction highlights you have in your packet. The 90 Leonard Drive, there's a new CrossFit building that's being upgraded. The Sandbox up on Gold Star Highway, which is going to be a big volleyball facility, is finally got design and permit submitted and approved. I know that's been kind of waiting for a while. Groton Village condominiums next to Groton Human Services under construction. Multi-family units on Route 12 are under construction. 120B Leonard Drive is undergoing outfitting for an office space. Core Plus is moving from their more hidden location to the plaza with the shack in it. And the building that will house Beard and Mystic Cheese on Leonard Drive has been offered a certificate of occupancy. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. That's just the beginning of it. We have a lot more programs coming along that we're going to be seeing some exciting dividends of the economic development plans that we've been developing. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative McDermott, would you have anything from the Trails Coordinating Committee?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is from the Trails Coordinating Task Force. For those of you who are relatively new and don't know what that is, it's a coordinating effort between some of the local organizations who own land here, Gosha, Groton Open Space Association, and Avalonia have quite an extensive network of parks and trails, and we partner with them here in the town. So we had a meeting on September 20th, and people in attendance were Joellen Anderson from Avalonia, Mark Berry from Groton Parks, Councilor Franco from our Groton Council, and B. Reynolds, she's from the Tri-Town Trails, myself, Deb Jones from Groton, and Sydney Van Zant from Groton Open Spaces. And I'll just hit some of the highlights on this thing. Along with some of the development that we're trying to get in town, I brought up the Avery Memorial Park needs some work. That's the park that's right across from Chelsea Groton and across the street or right next to Dunkin' Donuts. There's a park there, and it's just overgrown, and we're going to look at that and see if we can. Deb Jones said that there's been an approved site plan for that park, and she would get a copy of that to Mark. On the Crosstown Trail, Mark reported that he would be applying for a recreational trails grant to pay for construction of the footbridge behind Cutler Middle School. He thanked Gosha for contributing towards the matching funds that were required for the grant. The balance of the 20% match will come from in-kind contributions from the town. The estimated cost of the project is $32,000. If you get a chance to go over there, you can walk that trail until you get to the river, and then you can't cross it, of course, but it's a pretty neat project that's going to happen. For Groton Open Spaces, Sydney reported that 0.09 acres of the Noank Community Garden property was being transferred back to one of the original property owners. I think Bob Zagami referred to that earlier. I think it's the same thing. On the town trails, Mark updated the task force on the Mystic River Trail. Kenton Frost has been hired to develop a proposed wayfinding plan for the Mystic River Trail. The proposed plan will likely include a common element that would indicate the various locations along the trail. That's being worked on right now. On the Tri-Town trails, that's a trail that is supposed to go from Groton all the way to Preston. It has not happened yet, but they're working on that continually. B. Reynolds updated us on the work on the northern section and mentioned that the beavers have been flooding some of the areas. They don't know what to do about that, but the suggestion was to put beaver baffles into play to fool the beavers so that they can do their work, but they don't really create the havoc. Under new business, Councilor Franco updated the group on the beautification committee. She reported there's been strong interest in the community, and the group was focusing on 4 different areas: paintings, sculptures, litter, and blight. She also mentions that the Conservation Committee would be discussing ways to reduce plastics and be working on a plan to raise business awareness of this issue. I'm on that beautification committee as well, and we're trying to start with Route 1 and Route 12 to make the town a lot more attractive. It's just part of our economic development plan, really. We want to be able to attract people to live here, as well as sell them businesses and schools and so forth. The last item that came up, there's going to be something on the ballot in November about a constitutional amendment which is going to prohibit the legislature from taking park land. And so that was a thing that we thought would be really beneficial for everybody here to know and talk about, because it's something that will preserve our open space, and the legislature can't take it and sell it. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question? Where's the Mystic River Trail? I'm not familiar with it.
So you know where the 95 bridge is on River Road? Right over there.
Oh, thanks. Representative Bordelon. Excuse me? Oh, sorry. I don't think we have any committee reports at this point. Is that correct? No one. All right. The next item is budget discussions, if there's any desire to engage in that. I mean, we've had a fairly long evening, but if, you know, it is October, and as Representative Bordelon mentioned, the budget is actually being developed at this point. So last year I felt like we kind of got started late, and we never really had a nice tete-a-tete or a RTM discussion to see if we had a cohesive approach to how we wanted to address the budget. I don't know if that's something that's desirable, but I certainly just want to see if there's any discussion on this budget item. No? Silence. Silence. Okay. The next item is other business, and I just wanted to say I would allow, you know, people seem to use the citizens' petitions for speaking their mind on this ordinance that's, rather on the charter revision vote. If other people who have not spoken, and I do have a list, would like to speak, you can speak on this item, you know, as new business. And usually this item is reserved for RTM members to speak on issues that they would like to bring up. Representative Whitehouse?
Actually, this is sort of for the last thing, but my brain works slowly.
That's
but
fine.
it probably works for this too. I was thinking, assuming that we still have an RTM going into next May, it might be good to, because since the process kind of starts with the town manager creating, creating some concept, for him to kind of come and share his vision of where he's going, so we have that as a starting point. So I think it's maybe why we're not having a discussion is that we're like, so we don't know what we're going to be building around, or if we'll be here, but we don't know what we're going to be building around. So maybe for next month, if Mr. Burke come in and kind of give us his broad vision and some maybe some options. I know he doesn't set the agenda, but just kind of something to work
Sure.
with. Might be a thought of something to work with as a starting point, so that we are ahead of the game when we get there.
Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. In regards to the budget piece, also, just the CIPs, anything coming from the town manager this year, it would be helpful to see the year that it was originally established, and you know how many times it's coming forward and things like that. And I know some of it was in there, but just a clearer description. And one of the things of a more user-friendly way to access things that were presented to the town manager that were not considered. So, for example, like I do have all the CIPs that look like they're going to go forward to the town manager. When we get our packet, we see the ones that he presents when he creates his budget. I also just like to see which ones are eliminated. Obviously, I'm not going to see I focus on the Board of Ed budget, but it'd be nice to see the elimination list as well.
Usually that is in the CIP.
Yeah.
It just isn't funded for that year. It's funded.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is once I get the binder, maybe a little bit earlier when he's proposing, as he's going through, as things start to come off, earlier before maybe the binder's available, there might be, so you can start working some of those things and seeing what's going on. Just a little bit more concrete, that's all. That's just a mere suggestion, sorry.
Mr. Zagami, are you clear on that? Okay.
No, yeah.
Any other thoughts, comments? No. Representative Richards?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just wanted to inquire, actually. The ordinance that has been brought up a couple times about the Groton 2020 plan, would that be going to the Education Committee before our next meeting? Is that something we can refer?
That is what I had expected. It would go to Education Committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to ask about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should it also go to Finance, or would that just be inappropriate?
At this rate, it could. My first impression was it should go to Education, but it could, I think it's actually, according to the town clerk, it is my decision. So that was where I had originally thought it should go. Representative Kotowski, did you have a question?
I wondered why we got Finance Committee notification of a meeting.
I don't know.
We're still wondering.
I was surprised. I have no idea why that came. I was not in the loop on that. Sorry. And that's why I didn't actually announce it tonight because I'm trying to figure it out. I'm happy to be, if finance is a more correct place for it to go, my first impression was Education would be a good home for it, but I'm happy to talk with Bev and Representative Washington and Representative Whitney. So thank you. Any other questions, comments? No, this is it. So, I take a motion to adjourn if there are no more.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Well, anyway, have a great rest of October.